Okay, so it's been a while since an episode of a show got me to cry that much. It's been a while since something broke me like that, but then healed me, and then broke me, and then healed me again, and then threw a twist on the end. ReZero's an interesting show. Anyway, hello everybody, welcome back to another one of our weekly ReZero Season 2 discussion videos. Today we're going to be talking all about Episode 4, Parent and Child. But before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you don't, I'll probably cry even more. That's a lie. I have no tears after this week's episode. But still, consider hitting that subscribe button. It'd be really appreciated. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, as I've been known to do here, I typically go through the episode like scene by scene, moment by moment, and honestly this is like one of the first times where I regret that that's how I have set up the channel. I may change it in future and go back to just kind of talk about the stuff that most reached out to me in an episode, but still, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through this thing piece by piece because I feel like it's appropriate this time around, but still, part of me just wants to talk about two scenes in particular because they absolutely tore my heart out, stomped on it, and then healed it in front of me and put it back in and then gave me a lollipop to make me feel better. Like, that is literally what I could describe this episode as. This episode's intense, man, but it begins with something not quite intense. It begins with Subaru waking up back in his family home. Now, we know that this is carrying on from last week. And last week, I thought he was transported back, like as though like he was put back into his place, like from where he left. But no, it's made almost like immediately clear that this is very much like a dream. And I said last week that I was sort of like debating whether or not this episode was going to end up being like the episode of Digimon where Tai goes back to the digital world. And yeah, it basically is that, but it is abundantly more, I shouldn't say more impactful, because like that's sort of selling Digimon short, and I know like the meme that I was a part of like the Digimon is the best isekai thing. ReZero is the best isekai, but I'm not trying to knock Digimon. Like, I should go back and maybe rewatch that episode just to see how it stacks up, because that episode's also pretty great, but it has the same sort of vibe where even the visuals look different. Like, you can tell it may be not like nothing's not quite what it seems, you know what I mean? And with this episode of ReZero, it's the same, where there's this vibe to it. Like, the art is the same, but the colors and the background art and everything, there's like a haze to it. There's this sort of like, I can't really describe it, like color, like just the shading on the characters and everything. There's this like sort of filter placed over it that makes it kind of clear that this isn't exactly the world that Subaru left behind. It's clearly like him dreaming, but he sort of wakes up into the dream, like he's like from Inception or something. And immediately we are wrestling with Pops. Papa Subaru, like immediately, or Papa Natsuki, I should say. Papa Natsuki, like, immediately wrestling with his boy. And it's as though no time has passed, because Subaru just, like, without thinking about it, like, he's being pinned by his dad, and so he immediately counters into a submission, and then the dad actually uses that to counter into his own submission. And, like, they're just sort of, like, roughhousing and having fun, and for a second, Subaru's just like, oh, I'm back, like, this is great. Like, but it's not even like, I'm back, it's just, this is normal. Like, he's just sort of like convinced himself that like everything's fine, and that he's just waking up in his bed again and there's nothing different. His dad's here, everything's fine, and he's even quietly shocked to see his mom, because the mom says like, hey, can we have breakfast now, for crying out loud, I'm starving. And while he saw his dad, he sort of jumped into like wrestling mode. When he sees his mom, he's sort of like quietly shocked to see her. As he was with seeing his room, but like his dad didn't really give him the chance to be quietly shocked. You know, the dad's like, it's wrestling time, almost immediately. But yeah, like the room itself too, like seeing Subaru like look at his room, it is very much the room of a total geek. I'm pretty sure my man has an Asterix War poster on his wall, which has me going like, damn bro, really, Asterix War? You couldn't at least have Chivalry of a Failed Knight? I had to be Asterix War? Okay, my dog, okay. I didn't get to see all of the references. There's definitely a lot, mainly because I was trying to see them through my tears. But yeah, my boy waking up to his room was like legitimately such a quality scene. and just sort of throws you into the deep end, right? You're just sort of left to like try to guess what's going on. It's made relatively clear, again, because of the choice in palette, the filter. You can kind of get an idea of what's going on. But yeah, seeing the room, seeing Pops, seeing Ma, it was really quality intro. But this plus the breakfast scene does not prepare you for what is to come. But speaking of the breakfast scene, we find out that Subaru's mom is sort of interesting in the way that she cooks, in as much as she basically cooks like traditional Japanese food, but then also cooks like some Western food as well. Like, I can't remember what the Japanese dish is that they're having, but from what I recall, I think they're also having like toast with jam, which is kind of like, that's weird. Like, I mean, not weird, but it's just like, that's kind of interesting. Subaru even calls it out. Like, my boy Barusu, even though he cannot, quote-unquote, recall being Barusu, is just like, that's strange. Like, that's weird. Why? And she's like, I don't know. I just like both. I don't really want to choose. And you can see in this scene where she makes him, like, these forest of green peas, as Papa Natsuki points out, like, that's a lot of green peas. And my boy Subaru's like, that is indeed a lot of green peas. I don't even like green peas. Why did you make this? And his mom's just like, I don't know. I thought you'd like it. And he's like, all right. So I'm just gonna hand this to you. And she hands it to Pops, and Pops hands it back to Subaru. And then they basically spend the rest of the conversation just passing the cup of peas back and forth because nobody wants it. And Subaru says something along the lines of like, I don't want the damn peas. Like, take them. And to his credit, like, Kenichi, Subaru's dad's just like, listen, not many families get along as well as we do. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna compromise. We're gonna take these green peas and we're gonna make it into something else. And then they like dump a bunch of other stuff, like either rice or egg. I don't even remember what it was, if I'm honest. Again, it's hard to see this episode through my tears. But they sort of dump a bunch of stuff on top of it, and they're like, oh, we somehow made it worse. And Subaru's mom's even like, I'm kind of throwing up just looking at it. And then Subaru's like, all right, let's do this. And they basically manage to plow their way through it. And yeah, it's sort of a fun intro to these, to how breakfast typically went in the Natsuki household. And it's sort of bittersweet because you're like, wow, this family really did get along very well. But basically they get up and Subaru's like, no, I'm not going to school if that's what you're thinking. But as he says school, he gets a headache. But it's not just like any old headache. Subaru is like clearly in a great deal of pain, kind of like I am, because I woke up with a friggin' crink in my neck and it hurts to move right now. But that said, it's probably a little bit more pain that my boy's going through. Because my boy is clearly like in, like, I can't tell if it's a headache or if it's something to do with the heart. But here's a scene that I thought was interesting, and I had to address it because I do think it also, like, tells you a lot about Subaru's character, at least the way he used to be. Because when he has the sudden pain at the thought of school, what he does is he sits himself down on the bed, and he just stares at the clock, right? And he's like, okay, just stare at the clock until noon. And he just stares at the clock, and he watches the hands go by, and it clicks past noon, right? It stops at noon, it keeps going. And he goes, okay, I can breathe. It's past noon. And then all of a sudden that pain comes back, and he's like, well, what the hell? Like, it normally stops after I stare at the clock. So to me, I'm like, okay, did Subaru have like actual anxiety about going to class? Like, it's just this little like nod of like Subaru had this sort of ritual that would help ease his anxiety. And if you've ever suffered from anxiety, this is kind of true. Like, having these little, like, okay, this is how, like to pull from a show that's, like, not anywhere near as serious. Even Kaguya addresses, like, how to deal with, like, the anxiety. But in Kaguya, it's more of, like, a romantic thing. Kaguya touches her right hand to her left cheek, and that's how she calms herself down. It's a little ritual, right? Subaru would stare at the clock when he started to think about school and sort of get that anxiety, like that social anxiety. He would just stare at the clock until he felt better. And I feel like everybody has that little, like, this is what I do when I'm feeling nervous, right? Like, I do this thing. And I, like, honestly, it's, like, it just kind of makes Subaru all the more relatable. And I already kind of assumed that Subaru had some level of kind of intense anxiety, just based on how the character has been portrayed throughout the show. But again, seeing his rituals like back when he's in his own world. Like, it is very interesting. And speaking of interesting, I'm just gonna point this out because if I don't, I will feel foolish. When Pops reemerges and he sort of stumbles into Subaru's room and he's like, "Ah, my boy! Wait, you're a teenager. I should have knocked on the door first." And Subaru's like, "I wasn't doing anything." When he emerges, my man is wearing a blue shirt and orange track pants. And that doesn't seem like it means anything, but it kind of does. And I'll tell you why. My man looks straight up like Goku. He looks just like Goku when Goku's in that sort of like battle-weary mode. Like, you know, like when Goku's had like a tough fight and the top part of the orange gi sort of like is like ripped away and it's just the blue shirt. Like specifically I'm thinking of like when he's fighting Frieza or something like that. Or like when he's fighting Boo at the end of the Boo saga. Like at the very, very end of the Boo saga. And he's got like the blue shirt. Like he's got the blue tee with like the orange gi. Like just the orange pants of his gi. That's kind of what Subaru's Pops looks like in this scene to me, where it's like, man, he's rocking the blue tee and the orange tracksuit. It's not a gi, it's a tracksuit, but still, like he's rocking the orange track pants. I thought it was kind of a neat touch. I don't know why, but those colors together in an anime makes me think of Goku immediately. And it's actually not a bad comparison for who Subaru's dad is, this sort of larger-than-life, almost Superman-esque person to the world around him, specifically to Subaru, and the town as well. But still, like, Subaru views his dad like he's Goku, right? Like, he's this, like, he's Superman. He's larger-than-life, he's badass, he like, you can't catch up to him. He's so high above you, right? And, basically, it like I said, it's a good analogy for the way Subaru views his dad. Even if you want to get some color psychology into it, blue is often associated with like security and stability, since you see a lot of like traditionally like stable individuals or responsible individuals wearing blue, whether that's like Congress people or like police. Mind you, those people aren't exactly always stable and responsible, but still, that's sort of the idea that blue is associated with that type of indicator, right? It's typically meant to indicate a stable or secure type of place. Like, blue makes you feel secure. And the blue shirt on Papa Natsuki makes sense. But the orange in particular, too, orange is very much indicative of instinct, optimism, and enthusiasm, which, again, both of those things really scream Subaru's dad. But what's more interesting is that this is how we see him when they're at their home, right? But then this man asks Subaru if he has a girl he likes, and this like pushes them into this sort of father-son talk, and that's where we transition into the next big scene of the episode. And when we transition to this scene, Subaru is rocking the usual tracksuit, right? He's back in his traditional outfit that we associate with Subaru, the black, white, and orange, the black, white, and yellow tracksuit. Whereas his dad is still wearing the orange cardigan. Like, he's still wearing orange, but now it's more of a cardigan instead of like the pants. The orange is the orange in his color scheme is now this like nice little cardigan. But underneath, instead of blue, it's a lime green shirt. And this makes sense too, given that he's trying to bring like some restoration, some harmony into Subaru by having this father-son talk. Am I stretching it? Absolutely, but hey, color time is where it's at. Everybody seems to go crazy for color time. Heck, I'm debating making it a video series on its own, just kind of digging into what different character designs are trying to tell us about different characters. And I think it makes sense here. Like the sort of like vibrant colors that are associated with Ken, Subaru's dad, it makes a lot of sense given his character's personality. And in that moment too, the fact that he goes from this like energetic tracksuit and like t-shirt dude who's like jacked and built and he's gonna wrestle with Subaru into kind of going into dad mode, where he's got the orange cardigan, he's got the lime green shirt to sort of bring in that sense of harmony back into his son's life as he tries to sort of sort out his kid's issues. I think the color choice is really interesting, especially the fact that Subaru's back in the tracksuit that we know him for, sort of indicating like he's starting to sort of put the pieces back together. It's interesting too that when we see them walking through town, a lot of people all assume like, man, like, did you get let go from your job? Because they just assume that the fact that he's walking around on his day off must mean that like he got laid off or something. And everybody seems to be drawn to Papa Natsuki, right? Like Ken Kenichi just has this sort of like draw to him where he like just sort of captures people's enthusiasm. Like they really want to be around him. He has that magnetic personality to him, and it's something that Subaru has always sort of emulated. You know, like when we met Subaru, he tries to be magnetic, but hell, just look at my own crazy history with the show. I hated Subaru when I met him because he felt phony and fake until I realized that that was the entire point. And that's part of his character. And so you see how he tried to emulate Kenichi into Subaru. Like how Subaru tried to like incorporate his dad into himself as part of his personality, sort of like trying to be this amalgamation of all these things that he thinks are cool. And it doesn't really work because he's not being himself. We'll get to that in a bit. But it's interesting how the town sort of views him. And we meet this older gentleman who basically says like, "Oh, Kenichi, like it's been so long, blah, blah, blah. Like, how are you doing? Oh, that's your son, right?" And he goes, yeah, this is my Subaru. This is my pride and joy. And the guy says like, "Oh, you look like, actually, no, you look an awful lot more like your mom." And I was like, what? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Like when he said that, I was like, no, he looks a hell of a lot more like his dad, unless I'm confused. Like he definitely has his mom's eyes, but everything else is his dad. Like literally almost everything else is his dad. So when the old dude says like, "You look a lot more like your mom," I was like, questionable, old man, but I'm going to chalk that up in to you just kind of being old. But Subaru also says like, "Yeah, I get that a lot," and I'm like, I don't see it. Am I insane? Do people have eyes here? I'm not clear, totally understanding what's happening here. I'm not very clear on all of this. But regardless, apparently Subaru looks more like his mom. But when he is asked by the old dude, like, "Wait, isn't it like Monday? What are you doing out here? Like, what are you two doing out here at this hour?" Because it's like around noonish again. And Subaru like sort of feels that same, like, again, like it almost seems like a panic attack, but you know it's not. Like, you know there's something weird about it. So he feels that pain again. He's like, "I really gotta go." And so they sort of like stumble away from the old dude, and they end up going to this bench. So we have transitioned from a father-son walk to a father-son bench talk. And Subaru basically knows what his dad is up to like almost immediately, right? He's just like, "I know what you're trying to ask. I know what you're trying to do. Also, I know that you shook this pop can before you gave it to me," and he like cracks it open away from him. And I love that Kenichi's like, "Oh man," like man, Papa Natsuki, he plays too much. This man plays too much. Like he can't help it. Even when he's trying to have a very serious father-son talk, he's got to crack open a joke. Like my man's got to have Subaru crack open a can of pop and crack open a can of jokes all over his face. But apparently Subaru is just, he's been around his dad too much. He knows that he's trying to pull something, not nefarious, but trying to pull off something cheeky. And as they sort of have this talk, Pops again pushes the topic of like the girl, right? He's just like, "Hey," because he mentions way earlier in the episode, like, "Hey, is there a girl you like?" And Subaru's like, "What?" And then they go on the father-son walk, right? But he again pushes the topic, like, "Hey, like, is there a girl you like?" And Subaru's like, "Why do you keep asking?" Right? And then like as he says like, "Why do you keep asking?" he gets that pain again, and then he hears like Subaru, and it's Amelia. And I like when this happened, I was like, "Oh shit." But then he says, like, "Who are you?" And it's this moment where it's hard to explain. Like, he sort of has this, like, "Did you hear that?" And his dad's like, "Hear what?" And he's like, "Nothing, I guess." And so Pops kind of just tells Subaru that he's not upset with him about ditching school. Like, he doesn't really care. Like, he even says, like, "I kind of always thought school was overhyped. Like, I understand the need, but it doesn't bother me if you don't want to go to school. I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not that disappointed. Neither's your mom. Like, it is what it is." And Subaru says, well, he doesn't say it quite yet, but he's sort of like baffled by this. And he says, he's like, "Why are you bringing this up now? Like, why didn't you tell me this earlier? Why are we having this talk?" And Papa Natsuki just says, like, "I'm bringing it up because the look on your face seemed a bit better." And you can tell that's because of characters like Amelia, Rem, like all the characters that Subaru has been having this crazy adventure with. Like, all the characters who have been with us since episode 1, like, and like going forward, they've actually helped make him a better person, you know? And so the look on his face is more confident. He's more sure of himself than he was at the beginning. Like, think back to early Subaru, like episode 1 Subaru. That dude is not the same guy that we have now. They are very, very different characters. Like, they have the same energy, but the way that they use that energy is wildly different. They are almost like two different characters at this point. Subaru has grown immensely. And honestly, this was the episode where I was like, because like for the most part, like Subaru was my boy after Start from Zero, right? But I was always sort of like, man, you sometimes do some stuff that bugs me still. This episode, I just wanted to reach out and give him a friggin' hug. And I was like, Subaru, man, you are my boy. Like, from now till forever, you have grown so much. And this episode is just proof of that. And he's still growing. He's still becoming a better and better person because nobody's ever complete, you know? Like, there's always something to work on. And seeing him continue to grow in this episode alone, it serves to show like what a great character Subaru has become. And then once again, like the thought of like the look on your face seemed a bit better. It sort of brings Amelia back full force for like a second, right? And she just says, "It's been rough, hasn't it?" And as he sees her, like sort of like the world falls away, and it's just him and Amelia. And he says like, "Who are you?" And he starts like repeating it over and over again because he can't really seem to recall. But then he has like all these flashes, and he sort of looks at his dad, and he's like, "You know what? Actually, there is a girl I like." And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And in that moment, he sort of like he admits that he sort of like that he tried to run away from this, but he kind of knows why he seems better, why his face looks a bit better. You know, like he knows why he was trying to run from it. But then he also admits, like to his dad, that he sort of had hoped that his parents would talk some sense into him, that his parents would tell him like, "You're not my son. I hate you. Like, I'm kicking you out. Like, this is ridiculous. You have to go to school." Like, that they would sort of, you know, give him some grief and kick him in the ass and tell him to go to school. And it's here that we actually get a even better deep dive into why Subaru is the way he is, and specifically why he is the way he was, or why he was the way he was, rather, from when we first met him. As he starts to explain his past feelings about being his parents' kid, right? Like he flashes back to like winning these races when he was a kid, these little like triathlons and stuff like that, or like these little baton races, stuff like that. And he hears the crowd say like, "You're definitely his kid." And it's like, it started off as like a boon, right? Like young Subaru felt like, yeah, I am just like my dad. But over time, he started to lose that. Like, he wasn't as fast, he wasn't as strong, and he started to sort of have difficulty with his own self-image. And so he turned to becoming sort of like the jokester, prankster amongst his friends as a sort of cry for attention. That is like very indicative of why Subaru was the way he was, but also B, is insanely real. Like, that is so raw to me. And I it's just like the idea that he struggled to live up to his parents' his parents' persona, and like how like he struggled to be like seen as worthy of being his parents' kid. And he, like, when he knew that he couldn't quite do the same things that his dad could, he sort of relied on becoming like the prankster, and he constantly tried to outdo himself. And he was constantly trying to like one up his own pranks, right? It sort of became grander and grander the more he went. You see like some flashes of like some of the pranks that he would do, right? Like some of the stuff that he would do as a sort of cry for attention. Like, Subaru needed the attention that he once had but was failing. And it's almost kind of Naruto-ish, if I'm honest. Like, it kind of gave you flashes to Naruto, where like when Naruto was a lad, like he would do these like pranks and stuff, but mostly just as a call for attention. And again, it's one of the reasons that made Naruto very compelling, and it's becoming one of the reasons that makes Subaru very compelling. And there's this moment where he's like running with his friends and he sort of falls over and he realizes that when he looks back, there's nobody there anymore. And that shot is brilliant, where you see him running with his friends and like one by one the friends sort of like leave, and then eventually he trips and falls, and when he looks back, they're not there. And he realizes that there's nothing quote-unquote special about him, when in actuality Subaru is the most special. But in this case, no, there's nothing special about him, at least as far as he's concerned. And he tried to blend in, and then when he got to high school, he sort of botched his high school debut. You even see him doing like the classic Subaru pose on a chair at one point. And when he botched that debut, he sort of just he like kind of receded into himself, and he woke up late to school one day and he looked in the mirror and he sort of realized he just didn't want to go. And then one day a week became 3, and then eventually he spent 3 months away from school, and that was it. And as he's explaining this all to his dad, he realizes that he just kind of wanted to give up, but then he hears a little voice say, "It's easy to give up, but it doesn't suit you." And it's Rem from the episode Starting from Zero, which is my favorite episode of the show, but this episode might legitimately be a very, very close second, and I mean very, very close. I'm gonna need some time to ruminate on whether or not this is my new favorite episode or not, because it very well could be. Easily one of the best episodes of this season, I can say that. And I know we're just starting, but let's be real, like child or parent and child of episode 4 of season 2 is easily going to be one of the best episodes of the summer anime season. At least I'd assume so, because this episode just hits, man. And speaking of just hitting, Pops basically delivers a boot to Subaru, but he calls it the father headbutt, his most loving father headbutt, and he basically just brings his foot down and as like an axe kick to the top of Subaru's head. And he sort of gives him grief and says, like, why do you really think I could ever abandon you? Like, do you understand the words you just said to me? Like, do you understand why what you said is stupid? Like, his dad just says, like, that is the dumbest thing you've ever said. I could never hate you, and you're always my kid, and I could never abandon you. Have you lost your mind? And this is where I started going like, huh? No, don't cry. Spoilers, I ended up crying. But I was like, nope, everything's fine. And Subaru sort of laughs and explains that there's actually 2 girls who view him simply as Natsuki Subaru, not Natsuki Kenichi. You know, like they viewed him as himself, and that gave him the courage and strength to be himself. And we're slowly seeing him fix his self-image and his own pride over the course of ReZero. And he admits this to his dad, and his dad, oh my god, I'm gonna start crying again. His dad says, like, listen, like, I'm proud of you no matter what, man. Like, and all I ask in turn is that you take care of me and your mom when we're old. All I ask is that you take care of me and your mom when we're older. Oh, come on, man. And Subaru just breaks down, and come on. And he says, like, he basically just apologizes for saying that he can't. What's wrong with me? That he can't be there, and it broke me, dude. Like, it really, really broke me. Like, this, and I thought this was gonna be like the only time, right? I'm like, okay, good, we got this emotional beat out of the way. It ends up happening again later, where I'm like, god damn it, like, I'm gonna cry again, because obviously he's gonna get a moment with both parents, but like that moment where he just breaks down and says, like, I can't make it up to you before I go, and I know that I'm not gonna be able to. And it's so, oh my god, it's so sad. The direction in this scene is pitch perfect. Like, the acting in this scene is pitch perfect. Everything about this moment is pitch perfect. I mean, like, to a goddamn T. It is one of the best scenes in the show in general. And it just hits, like, the two of them just sort of embracing. And obviously, Kenichi's like, why is this happening? Like, are you okay? What's going on? And Subaru just freaking cries, man. He just lets it out. And in that moment, I'm like, yeah, Subaru. Like, yes, my son. Just let it out, my boy. Let it out, Barusu. You're okay. And just, freak, man. It's just, I can't even talk about it. I'm just gonna move on. This is pretty much like the last time we see Pops in the episode, because Pops says, you know what, man, I'm gonna walk the long way home, and this is basically like where we leave Papa Natsuki, and Subaru's like, okay, all right, and I think he sort of knew that this was gonna be the last time he saw him, and he just sort of like, he's like, listen, Subaru, I know you're going through some stuff right now. Like, I'm sure you got a lot on your plate, so I just wanted to tell you something. With great power comes great responsibility. No, that's not what he says. He says that he needs to give it his all. He lets him know to just give it everything he's got, and that he expects the best from him. And Subaru confirms, saying he's his son, and he could do anything because he's his son. And I'm not crying, you are. And then we see Subaru and his dad just sort of part ways. And Subaru goes home. He gets into his school uniform. And after 3 months of staying away from school, like this is the same day, but Subaru just reflected on the fact that at this point in time, he had been away from school for around about 3 months. And he's ready to go back. He is student Subaru, and student Subaru is complete. And he gets ready to go when he can't help but notice that his mom is hanging out in the kitchen. And she says, like, you want to share some mayonnaise with me? I'm like, bro, that's gross. And she also says, like, you really going to leave for school now? Like, this can't wait till tomorrow? Like, seems a little early. And he's like, no, it has to be now. Like, it has to be now while I have the courage. Like, I have the courage now. You're discouraging me. The two of them just share this really funny moment, and it sort of leads to her walking Subaru to school, which is really funny. Because Subaru says, like, like, it's this awkward, like, come on, man. Like, you're not really helping with the shut-in thing. Like, I was a hikikomori for a while. It doesn't help my confidence to have my mom walk me to school. And she's like, relax, I'm just walking to the convenience store. You just happen to be with me. I'll stop when we get to the convenience store, and I'll let you walk the rest of the way. And they just sort of have this conversation between the two of them where Mama Natsuki points out that, so you've decided to finally stop playing catch-up to the old man, eh? Subaru's like, huh? And she's like, yeah, like, like your dad always had all these interests, and like he would constantly get freaked out and excited about whatever, and you would follow him. It sounds exhausting. And Subaru says, like, wait, you knew? Like, you always knew what I was up to. And she's like, yeah. Like, you're not aware of it, but parents keep an awfully close eye on their kid, and I will always be watching you. And I was like, oh no, here come the waterworks again. Like, just watching the episode, like, oh God, here we go. And she, like, the two of them just have this nice little conversation where she says, like, listen, I'm your parent, right? So I'm always gonna care about you. And I'm really grateful to whoever it is that helped you improve yourself. Like she notes her and Papa, like Mama Natsuki and Papa Natsuki both noticed this change in their boy. And they're grateful to whoever it was that helped with that change, right? They noticed it. It's why he was, Papa Natsuki was so insistent, like, is there a girl you like? Like, even the mom knows, like, there's clearly a girl. Like, there's somebody who is helping you become a better person. And the mom basically says, like, all right, I'm going to head off to the convenience store. And Subaru's like, okay, I'll see you later. And she's like, yep. And she sort of walks away. And, he watches her leave, and I knew he was going to say something, and I was like, this is where I'm going to cry. And he says that he has to go, but he'll always think of them, and he'll never forget them. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. And he kind of breaks down again, which is like, yeah, that's fair. Like, this is basically the last time he's going to see his mom. And she, like, the conversation between them, like, again, the writing, Tape, man, like, why are every line is gold, like, every line of dialogue is perfect. Tape is a genius at writing character dialogue. And when she hits him back with, because, like, he had said, like, I'm sorry I never got to do everything that I wanted to do for you guys. And she just hits him with the, like, we didn't have you because we wanted you to do something for us. We had you because we wanted to do something for you. And the take care, oh my God. Like, the fact that, like, Natsuki, like, the fact that Mama Natsuki's saying take care is the last thing she says in the dream, and the last thing she said to him before he left for the Isekai land, Like, it's the last word that she says to him, ending the dream right where we left off in reality. It's perfect, man. It's so perfect. And the fact that, like, original Subaru doesn't actually say anything. He just sort of, like, leaves because he's in, he's in a rut. But our Subaru, like, the Subaru now waves. My boy is a grown ass man now. My Subaru, Natsuki Subaru is a solid grown ass man right now in that moment. When he waves, take care, like, I'll see you, goodbye. And he musters up the courage and he opens up the classroom door, and there's Donna inside. I do not know where we go from here. I do not know what happens from here on out. I will say, my girl Donna looking dope in the school outfit. I will say that. This was possibly, as I said, like, no matter what the show is, I think irregardless of what series is airing, I doubt any show is going... honestly, a part of me even doubts ReZero is going to top this. Like, I doubt the own series this episode is from is going to top this episode. I really think this might be, like, already the best episode of summer 2020. It's legitimately that good. Like, legitimately just a beautiful send up to how far Subaru has come. This great little, like, even as its own episode, I think this really does stand strong. We also got the ED, which is freaking fantastic. But I don't really have much to say about it because, again, I couldn't really see the screen through my tears. But yeah, it's just a brilliant episode. I don't even really have much to say beyond just, like, Tape, you're a genius, and I love and hate you at the same time. I love you because you brought me ReZero, and I hate you because you made me feel such emotions. I don't actually hate you. It's all love. But yeah, it's... Wow, what a crazy episode. Yeah, wow. The only thing missing was Krush. I know it wouldn't have made sense, but I love Krush. So every episode could have been improved with just a little bit more Krush. There you go. Ended on a joke. Hopefully we're all done crying now. But with that said, everybody, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry that I was so unprofessional this week. Not that I've ever really been professional. You know me, these episode discussions, they're just sort of a mess. But hey, if you enjoyed today's video despite the mess, then go ahead and boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names. Hopefully they did not cry as much as I did. I am such a child. But that said, if you would like to join these beautiful people, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can help keep this channel afloat, and I would sincerely appreciate it. But with that said, everybody, I am going to go watch some funny cat videos to make myself feel better. And until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.